Welcome to Real Estate Success DFW, the podcast where top producing agents from Dallas-Fort Worth come together to share their stories and strategies behind their success. I'm Shaune Corbett, your host, and with over 300 million sold in the local real estate market and the honor of being best of B multiple times, I know what it takes to make it in this market. Each episode, we're going to dive into the world of real estate, learning from the very best in the industry. If you're ready to level up your game, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey everyone, Shaune Corbett here, Real Estate Success DFW, and I've got a guest. It's brothers. I've got a Ben and a Harrison Sharp. Harrison's going to be on the call with us. He's going to talk about his business model and where he's come from in real estate. And if there's any specific things that's going to be of value to you, I want to kind of cover some of those things as well. How are you doing, Harrison?
Doing well. Thanks for having us on today, Shaune.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you jumping on. So we got connected through Tyler, and he's connected me with a couple of different agents. And you were one of the ones he really emphasized that he wanted me to have a conversation with. You've got a really good social media presence. You've sold quite a bit of real estate. And I think you're pretty new in the business, which makes it even more exciting. How long have you been in real estate?
Yeah, so this month is actually my 5-year mark of when I got my real estate license. So still relatively new, still learning every single day, but we've got a pretty good amount of experience so far with kind of the short time frame that we've been in the business. So it's been fast and furious, but it's been great.
So you actually, do you have a master's?
Yes, master's degree in finance, and then have a CPA license as well. That was kind of what I studied in college, and then just randomly stumbled into the real estate game and haven't turned back. So,
okay. Well, and unfortunately, most land in real estate and they don't make it work, and then they have to go do something else because it's a very high turnover business. I'm sure by now you've heard that. So for you to be in it for 5 years is already, you're in the top probably like 95%, right? I mean, it's a pretty small window of people that could make it that long. You got a master's in the finance space. Were you wanting to get into that space, or you just right out of college, you're like, you know what, let's go get the license and see what we can do with real estate first?
So yeah, I actually didn't have any intent of getting into real estate. I kind of stumbled into it. I studied accounting and finance, decent paying, worked at Ernst & Young for 3 years. And then I did financial planning for 3 years. And when I was at the financial planning company, that's kind of when COVID happened. And I just actually got my license because I gotten into real estate through like buying rental properties. I bought a few myself and I was like, might as well get my license and start saving on the commission. My own deals, not really knowing anything about the sales side of it or anything like that. Do it as a part-time gig, do my own transaction every single year. My goal was to buy a rental property every single year until I hit financial freedom. And then, I did that, and then I started helping kind of other people do the same real estate strategy that I was doing starting out. Realize, you make a decent money doing this if you can provide value and find a good property for people. And that first year, I was basically working real estate full time while I was working my other job full time, and almost made twice as much in real estate, as the other job. And then after that, I just quit and went all in on it and haven't really turned back since. So.
Okay. And you're in that kind of growth phase right now. I think you and I talking offline before we started, this particular podcast, is that you're looking to kind of scale your business and grow and do a higher volume is kind of your priority today. So what does that look like? What are you looking to scale? You want to do more transactions per month? You want to connect with a bigger audience? What are you kind of doing to do that?
Yeah. So we're trying to get our sales volume numbers up. I mean, that's, we want to be the top selling team or top selling, individual in Texas. That's kind of our goal right now, at least to start. I guess I did, around 5 million my first year, then it jumped to 18 year 2, 27, 25. Last year we had our best year right under 31 million. This year we're on track to do anywhere between 40 and 50. So, kind of really, we see a lot of, I guess, the higher margin in kind of, and then the sales side of the business, right? Like, obviously, this industry is kind of weird in the fact that it's not really hard to separate yourself in terms of like a value perspective. So what our business philosophy is right now is, and what it always has been, is we're going to try and provide you the highest level of service, get you the best, the highest quality, and then turn like charge a premium for that. And we're still learning and figuring it out. But all of our business so far has come from straight referrals. It's been people that I've connected with, done a good job with. They send me their client, they send me their friends whenever they're looking to buy a house. A lot of our investor clients, they get a good deal. We find them a good deal. It works. They want to buy again. They want to buy another one. They want to keep buying. We work with some land developers that we list a lot of their stuff for. So we do a lot now. And it all stems from just taking care of people, being responsive, giving good advice, even though we may not make money per se, but that's really all it's been so far. So, we're focusing right now on kind of growing out that referral side, and then we're trying to get our online presence and branding. That's kind of what we've been focusing on at this current moment. And then ultimately kind of getting into some of the other paid, advertising and marketing channels once we get to that point, but we're not quite there yet. So
I'm going to hone in on something you just described. And that's where you're looking to offer a value proposition, just like any other agent, but your value proposition leads to a premium in collected income. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, exactly. So, most agents charge 3%. That's still what we're charging right now. But honestly, we feel a lot of agents don't justify that. And even sometimes we get that imposter syndrome where we don't feel like that. But what we're working on right now is basically, other than what we already do on a day-to-day, just coming up with a different value proposition. I think a lot of agents don't really understand. The biggest thing, obviously, is branding. And this business is becoming, with the internet, AI, and all that stuff, it's not that there's a lot of, discount brokers, discount agents, all that out there. But, when you're a seller and ultimately you're trying to sell a property, what's the biggest, what do sellers want? They want the highest dollar amount in the quickest amount of time. How do you do that? You got to leverage your online presence and get as many eyes on that property as possible, other than just like MLS. So, one thing that we're really focusing on right now and kind of starting to do is, instead of, a lot of agents are spending money, if they're buying leads, right? Like they're spending money on, let's say Zillow, they're spending money on Zillow leads, or they're spending money on online advertising to try and get more clients. What we're trying to do right now is we're trying to spend more money in online advertising in order to get more eyeballs on the property. So like, Facebook advertising, instead of spending, money to, hey, come help us sell your house. Hey, here's this great property for sale, that's priced competitively. We're just trying to get as many eyeballs on it as possible. So, you see a lot of these guys, like Ryan Sternheim is a great example, like just brilliant marketing, branding. Like that's kind of what we're trying to model ultimately, is because the more people you have coming to your channel, Instagram page or whatever, the more, referrals, and the higher your value proposition is going to be. So that's kind of super high level what we're focusing on right now. But yeah, so.
No, that's all really good. So instead of using ads to attract more buyers and sellers, we're using it to promote the properties and sell them faster. And in effect, eventually continue to grow social media, Instagram, things like that. That's going to be our value proposition and credibility builder on attracting buyers and sellers.
Yes.
But we're actually using paid dollars to attract buyers and sellers.
Exactly. So it kind of doubles in its purpose, right? Like if we can prove out, hey, we're selling your property in half the time and for, $10,000-$20,000 higher, that's going to in turn bring you more business. So that's kind of how we think about it, as spending that money to try and bring in more clients. Right now, we're trying to actually all right, we're going to prove out our value and try and go after your referrals. So, because we know that we're going to take care of them. We know we're going to do a good job, assuming you're listening to our advice, and just keep growing the referral business that way. So
I'm going to get a little technical because I'm really big on scaling. I'm really big on growing. The thought of scaling, increasing volume of buyers and sellers that you work with, does not improve scaling. So what element are we talking to effectively grow scaling? Do you have VAs? Do you have systems that are now getting clean that makes it so you can do more for less time? What's elements?
Exactly. So I didn't go into the background on this, but basically, from years 1 to 4, it was me doing everything. I'm doing the accounting. I'm doing my taxes. I'm doing marketing. I'm keeping track of the CRM. I'm obviously running the transactions. So I was working like crazy. I just, for whatever reason, didn't know to really delegate, didn't know how, wasn't really thinking about it because I was making really good money. I was working really hard. But at the end of the day, I can only do so much. So me and my brother, that we partnered last year, and that's kind of where the whole scaling, I guess, idea came into play. He joined and he was looking at all my systems or lack thereof and was like, we can make this way more efficient for you. So the first thing that I actually did last year, and this has been a tremendous help, is I hired a full-time showing assistant on the buy side because a lot of my time is spent driving, especially when I'm showing houses all over DFW. So I hired him. We're paying him a salary, plus he gets a cut of every single house that he shows. He's a newer agent, so he's also, getting to learn, just how we operate, how we communicate. But he's basically taken on that role of literally showing all of properties. So that freed up a huge chunk of my time. Me and my brother, he came in and he's the one that's handling a lot of the back end systems and all that. So, I was using a CRM and Excel, I was just manually tracking everything. He basically went through, vetted, all right, which CRM are we going to use? Went through, we got set up on Follow Up Boss. Now we have everything automated, drip campaign, nurture, automatic. It's all automatic. So now that has taken, as opposed to having to me manually go through and just, when I even have time to go through and follow up with people, it's a lot of it's automatic. Now we get automatic notifications, email blasts go out. And then we also hired we have a full-time transaction coordinator as well, which handles all of our volumes. That takes off a lot of the paperwork off of me. And then we have a VA that is starting to help with our social media, just consistently put out content, create reels, and then help with some other ad hoc stuff. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But yeah, just offloading the tasks that aren't, a good use of my time. We could be paying someone else at $10 an hour to, do this, and that frees up my time to where I can go, make more connections, get out there, stay in touch with my clients, dinner, lunches, just the actual value add activities that drive revenue. So
yeah, relationship building.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh, I love it. So I think Penny, and remember, our audience is really not buyers and sellers, it's agents. Okay. So that's kind of the audience to reflect. And what I really like about doing these type of interviews is, Harrison, you could tell me everything that you're doing and no one can duplicate you. So yeah. I wish more agents could realize that we can't compete with each other with the same, skills. We all have to compete individually how we're good, right? There are things that I'm really gifted at that you can't just come and do exactly what I just did and do the same thing, right? So I like to have this open space where where are we going? What do we think the future looks like? And many will look at you and say, well, you got a broker's license. Why do you hang your license under another broker? What do you say?
It's just a profitability thing. Luckily I have a finance accounting background, so I'm able to look at the numbers on different business models pretty quickly and just see, what works and doesn't work. Where I'm a big proponent of in real estate, especially if you're in the broker business, the best way to make money is selling. That's really where the biggest, if you can do a good job there, that's where the highest margins. Last year our gross income was close to 7 figures, and we're taking home 90% of that, right? That's a crazy, you can't beat that margin in any other business in real estate that I've seen. So we're just look at the numbers on it. Going the brokerage model, you really have to kind of on the agent, when you're selling, you have to really prove out your value proposition. There's a lot of different brokers out there with a lot of different tech and different things. So, when you're competing against those other people, you really got to, either you're going to have to, if you're charging what they're charging, you're going to have the same type of tech, resources and all that available, or you're going to have to charge a less amount and make less money. And we're not really, it's just tough because there's, obviously all agents are 1099, and you can spend a year or 2 years training them to where they're finally producing and hitting your cap number every single year. But then EXP or Real or then whatever just offers them, hey, you can come do rev share here, and then bam, they're gone and there's no loyalty. So it's a hard industry to really capture consistent churn. So, we think there's value obviously in the coaching aspect, and maybe one day we'll kind of get into that where we go down all right, here's what we're doing. Here's our playbook. You can pay us X amount, as opposed to, all right, we're going to put you on as a 1099 agent and then train you up. But it'll be more like a monthly, you can pay for it irrespective of what broker you're at type thing and capture more. We just look at it by numbers, and it's just so hard to just retain agents. And then like you were saying earlier, very few stick it out, even 2 years. Most agents don't sell anything and just quit. So that's another factor too. Like you spend all this time training and coaching them. Well, that time could be used going to find more clients to make more money. So just a very tough business model to be in from our perspective.
Sure.
So,
well, I can answer the broker model. So it's better to connect with agents that want to be connected with you because of you, not because of the broker. And what happens is you can sell systems that they now are married to you for systems, and then you can go anywhere, they can go anywhere. It doesn't matter, because the system will work at any brokerage they want to apply at. So eventually, if the community's strong, then you go to a flat fee or a small, cost system. And there's nothing wrong with that if you have a good community and you're self-sufficient and can grow. But, that was the big thing when brick and mortar had community and cloud-based did not. That was the big letdown. After about 10 years of cloud-based exploding, all of a sudden agents were all on islands. And you really have to be an entrepreneur is the only ones that typically made it at that point. Like you have a vision of what you want to do. You're able to solve real estate problems and you're creating your own value add proposition through your own experience. And I doubt you've gotten a whole lot of hands-on, education. You've probably got your hands on it and did it. Exactly right. Yeah.
You have to, I think that's where a lot of agents are, I guess, delusional, or I don't know if that's the right word, but you're literally operating and running a small business. So you've got to be able to figure things out. Like it's not going to be all hand fed and spoon fed to you. And that's exactly how we kind of have done it. If we need to learn something, we're going to go learn it. YouTube is a great resource for a lot of any topic that you want to learn on. So yeah, you're exactly right.
So we've talked about the broker model, and there's also a team model, right? So you're effectively building a team, and you're building the team, and you want to build the team through W-2, not 1099. Did I hear that correctly?
Exactly.
So yes. Explain what that means. What separates those?
Yeah. So you can, if you want to end up wanting to go the 1099 route, a lot of the way that teams operate now is you get an agent on your team, you're either giving them leads or referrals, and you're taking a cut of that. I've seen it anywhere from 40 to 60% based off of how the lead is provided. That's another tough model that we struggle with because, a lot of these teams, in my opinion, are super greedy. And like you get an agent who comes on and they have, they're getting someone from their sphere, and then you're as a team lead taking 40% of that when they're, the hardest part of this business is generating the actual lead. So we see that and we're just like, this doesn't make sense. Actually, one guy on my team right now came over from another guy who was just raking him over the coals. I think he would have done around 200 in GCI, and he only made like 80 grand because his team lead was really taking everything and not giving him any value. So that's one reason why we don't want to go down that route. Another reason is because honestly, margin related, like if we have this machine that's churning a bunch of referral business, and then we train an agent, maybe an agent who doesn't want to go generate their own business or they just don't like that aspect of it. Maybe they like a little bit more stability, pay them a salary, train them on how you do it, depending on how much they're able to convert, how much you're giving them, they get their paycheck every 2 weeks and then you end up making more money on it. So that's kind of how we're thinking about it right now. Again, we don't have the lead flow quite yet to really hire someone, but that's kind of where we're going to go is we get someone to backfill what I'm doing right now, start taking over a lot of the extra leads, pay them a set salary. If they're closing at a certain percentage, then we're going to make more than we would on the team model anyways. And there's a little bit more loyalty there because they have that stability of the paycheck coming in, as opposed to, all right, we're giving you a bunch of Zillow leads, go make cold calls until you convert one of them. And if you don't do it, then we're going to cut it off. And we just like the salary approach better. So.
Yeah, there's obviously pros and cons. Few people go into the space you're in unless they have a dedicated long-term business model and they plan to have long-term agents that aren't leaving, right? So, it's weird to me in a sense because I look at like the Redfin model with W-2 employees. Like, why would you get into real estate to go be a salesperson for another company as an employee? That's how I think about it because I'm an entrepreneur, and you may think the same thing, right? But you're not hiring Harrison. You're not hiring Ben. You're hiring people that want the stability. They're willing to make a flat 80 to 100,000 and not stress about whether the money's coming in or not.
Yep.
And they just enjoy the prospect of showing houses and doing contracts and negotiating, and they just enjoy it. It doesn't make sense to me because I'm not employable. I don't know about you, but I've been fired from like every job I've ever had. I can relate with being an entrepreneur because I know that I have to make it work or I'm going broke, right? Or I'm starving. I'll tell you one other thing. We talked about, you guys combined in GCI approaching seven. There's no broker owners making seven figures that have less than like 10,000 agents.
Yeah.
We'll let that sink in.
Yeah.
There are no broker owners making seven figures with probably less than 10,000 agents. And I say that because I know a lot of small boutique broker owners that have like 50 to 100 agents, and their production is part of the way the brokerage runs. You should not be doing any production if you have that many agents, but it doesn't create enough income.
Yep.
One last example, the broker I work for, they offered me, that type of opportunity. And I looked at it and I interviewed with the national guy. And I said, man, I would have to cut my GCI by 4 to take that position. I think I'd rather take my chance selling real estate than dealing with all the politics and dealing with everybody else's hassles. So I can totally relate to that. The last thing I really want to emphasize is you have a space that you've allowed to grow extremely fast. And I'll be honest with you, I close on average about 100 transactions a year. I don't have a team. I don't have a partner. But it's through investors is probably half of it. Investors allow you to scale. It allows you to close transactions without showing property, and you can do some of them 100% on text. I don't know if you've done that yet, but the deal came, you sent it, they said they looked at it, okay, great, here's the numbers, here's the comps, bam, okay, I'll buy it at this price. You negotiate it on text, you negotiate with them on text, because it's not, there's no subjectivity.
Yep.
It's just numbers. So, and as a caveat, I never negotiate by text, but it's numbers and it's a house that has no emotion about it. I'll give exceptions doing it by text, but you can do a lot of business that way, and you can make effectively pretty good income if you can get a system going on how you approach that. So talk a little bit about your primary focus is in investors. And yes, you do buyers and sellers. You do referrals of friends and people that know, like, and trust you, just like we all do. But the investor space, you do rentals and you do short terms, you do flips.
Yeah, we do everything on the investment side. I flipped a few properties myself. We really like the wholesale strategy. We've got a lot of wholesale company and partners that will basically they'll send us leads. And, I've got a few of them that will partner on, they find a good wholesale deal, I'll fund the deal, and, we'll partner on it. We'll do an equity debt split depending on what the numbers look like. But yeah, we're all in that space. So, on the investment side, and then also too that that lends credibility. If you get someone coming to you who wants to flip a property, hey, have you experienced? Yeah, we do. We've done this before. We work with a lot of different types of clients who do this, so it just kind of builds on itself. But yeah, we work with people who are house hacking, buying their first property for the first time. I'm not sure if you're familiar with co-living, but co-living is kind of a new niche asset class in the single family real estate side. Is basically where you're taking a 4-bedroom house that has space, you're adding additional bedrooms, leasing out the individual bedrooms and creating a higher rent premium or rent number on that. We work with, land developers who will basically find these, 10 to 100 acre tracts, subdivide them, parcel them off, sell them individually. They're making money there. I talked a little bit about the flipping already. Got a bunch of clients who do short-term stuff. I'm actually right now in the process of furnishing a container home, a new build that I'm going to basically keep as a short-term rental property. So we've got experience and all, and then I've got a long-term rental portfolio as well. But we do a little bit of all of it, and that lends credibility to our buyers and sellers kind of in the investment space. So yeah, we just pretty, it's not our primary focus, but we know enough to tell you when it's a good deal or when it's not a good deal.
Sure. What do you use for, say, ARV of flip? What percentage of ARV do you like to stay in?
Typically 70% if you can find it. Obviously, DFW has gotten a little tight here in the last few years. A lot of these wholesalers are putting deals out, 80, 85%. They just don't make sense, especially kind of where we're at in the market cycle. But if we can get a deal sub 70 all in, we're going to, and it's at a good price point too, sub 400, we're going to usually go after something like that. So, the big thing on the flip side, we just like having multiple exit strategies. So if something happens and, your repair numbers come in higher, the property sits and you don't hit your ARV, all right, well, what are our backup options? Can you refi out of the hard money? convert it to a long-term rental, still be okay? Can you convert it in a location that would perform well as a midterm or a short term? So we just kind of consider all those factors whenever we're doing any like side investments or anything like that. So
love it. So the failure of a lot of agents is they're happy to sell houses, but they don't provide exit strategies for the buyers, even if they're not investors. Let's make sure we're in an area that's going to either appreciate or I could rent if everything falls apart. And I always talk about exit strategies when I'm talking to buyers. I think that's a very big value proposition. I did about 100 flips here in Dallas Fort Worth, and then I moved out of that space. I own some rental properties as well. But the big thing for me is exactly what you're saying, is that you can talk their language. And chances are you're probably a number of steps ahead of them on how to do it. So you always have a next step in the process, which is a huge value add for any investors. They want to feel comfortable about it. They don't care about the subjectivity of it, but they want to feel comfortable that you feel pretty confident we're going to get with this type of result.
Exactly. So you nailed it.
So you're in your favorite social media. Is that Instagram? Is that the
yeah, probably Instagram and Facebook. I post on all of them, just constantly posting stuff, sales, just random content on there. But yeah, I'd probably say Instagram account. So,
and it's harrison.sharp.realestate is your Instagram. I'm sure you could type in Harrison Sharp, probably pop it right up.
Yeah, that's the one.
So let's talk briefly about the social media. So Instagram, what's your primary posting? Do you do 100% business? Do you post much personal?
It's more business than I like. I try and throw in some personal stuff. I do a lot of it on my stories. Like most of my actual posting is going to be like real content from podcasts that we've been on or sales. But a lot of the stories that I post, it'll be a mix of everything, personal things I'm doing, whether it's golfing or working out or listening to music, all the real estate sales, obviously. And then we try and throw in, market insights, just things that are happening in DFW. If I see anything cool on Twitter or, anything real estate related, I'll just share it on my story, just to get comments on it. I don't really have like a set schedule or anything like that. That's what our VA has been doing on our business account. But my personal one is just kind of just whatever comes to my mind that day. So with just the consistent activity of posting the real estate sales and the content. And then another thing too that we really like to focus on is posting our client reviews, because we get a lot of really good reviews from our clients. So, and that helps build trust.
I don't know the answer to this, but I wonder, I don't ever post sales closings. And I wonder, do you get responses from doing that? Does that create positive response, or do you find those posts are generally pretty low in comments and things like that?
They're by far my lowest, I guess, type of content that gets any engagement on it, which is fine. All my stuff where I'm posting something funny or something that I saw that was crazy that happened, all that stuff probably gets way more activity on it. But what I have noticed about the consistent posting of the sales is, I may not get any engagement on it, but people are still seeing it. And a lot of times what'll happen is, I'll go to a party or I'll go to an event or I'll see someone random out in public. Oh, hey, you're killing it. You're selling a house every single week. I get that comment so many times. So that's more of, it's just the top of mind thing. If people know you're doing business consistently and doing a lot of it, like you're just going to inherently want to get more people that are going to want to work with you. So that's really the goal behind just the consistent posting of the sales activity, just to show, hey, we're doing business. We're here whenever you're ready type thing, and not necessarily for any engagement. So.
Well, very cool, man. Do you have any remaining things that would be of value or something you want to share?
Yeah, for agents listening, the biggest thing I would say is learn the investment space. If you really want to scale your sales business, you have to get in with the investors. I have so many investors who buy like 2, 3, 4 times a year. And when things are slow on the retail side, which they are very slow right now, the investors can pick up the slack, especially if we start seeing prices come down. A lot of these investors are going to start entering back into the market. Real estate is so cyclical, and obviously I'm still very new into it, but I can already tell a massive difference between what happened during COVID when everything was selling immediately and now. Like now it actually takes skill to sell property. You have to price it right. It has to be presented perfectly. And then you get that one buyer, you got to get them to the finish line. You got to get a deal in place. It's just very different now than it was even 2 years ago. So, but with all that being said, the investment side and the retail side is going to be drastically different depending on where we're at in the market stock. So we see prices drop and rates drop here in the next year, 2 years. Like a lot of these investors are going to start buying again. So it kind of helps take some seasonality out of the business. So.
No, I feel you. I used to, for a long time, if I just needed to create a sale, I just go hunt my off-market properties, fish it out to all my buyers, and I usually can get 1 or 2 a month just by putting a little effort there.
Yep.
And that to be able to create sales out of thin air is not something agents can do. I think it's a great magic trick. I'll tell you that.
Yes. Yes.
Well, awesome,
Yes.
man. It's been a great interview, Harrison. I appreciate you. And we will, have this recorded. It's going to get posted in our podcast a few weeks later, just because, I'm a little backed up on podcast recordings, but I love it. We can connect you with Instagram, and you've got a lot of really good insights and things you've shared. I'd like to probably do it again in the future as we kind of see where you're going. Maybe a year from now, see where you're going. You've got more staff and you're still killing it, man. I think it's an incredible business model. You're doing a great job.
I appreciate that, Shaune. Yeah, we'd love to be back on and kind of see where we're at this time next year. And hopefully we continue to grow. And yeah, hopefully, all the agents out there got some value. And yeah, thanks for having us on. So.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining in. Stay tuned next week. We'll have another episode and have a high performance week. Thank you. That wraps up another episode of Real Estate Success DFW. I hope you're leaving with new insights that push your real estate career forward. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with fellow agents who's ready to succeed. And if you're interested in working together or have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me directly. My personal phone is 214-228-0383. Let's connect and make real estate success happen together. Until next time, keep pushing forward. I'm Shaune Corbett, and this is the Real Estate Success DFW. Have a high performance week.